People who lie on their resume, get hired, and do a good job aren't bad. In fact, they're proof that degrees mean very little. Gert Postel is a famous con man in Germany who, after losing his mother partly due to incompetent doctors, left his job as a postman and simply applied to be the head of a big hospital. He just copied stuff he found and made his research that he had to present to committees and employers sound so complicated that no one could even ask questions. He worked as a doctor for like 20 years until someone from his old life recognized him. Even got a letter from a top judge calling him one of the most competent health experts witnesses for trials in the country. During my junior year of high school, we got a new welding instructor. He was probably one of the most well-versed people I've met in my life. The guy knew quite a lot and easily demonstrated his knowledge and skill. He got fired after 2 years because the school just then remembered that he needed a specific degree in some crap and he didn't have it. What you don't see is people who lie on resumes, get hired, and are a complete crap show. These people don't make for fun gotcha big company BuzzFeed articles. I've worked several places where the requirements did not match the work that was done and one stroke to the time we used proprietary systems that required you to learn anyway. This is pretty much supply chain. Every place I've worked has had multiple loopholes or systems to learn. I absolutely do not need a degree for what I do because of my experience, but I will say it made getting my degree super easy because I knew most of the course matter before I started. I would just like to add that some jobs are learnt by doing the job. You don't need a degree to prove you can perform on stage, or record and mix a song, or fix a car. You can learn these things in your own time. You don't need a degree to prove you can do it. So in fairness, I can understand why some people lie. Otherwise they wouldn't be given jobs that they are perfectly capable of and have possibly been doing for years. But the problem is most jobs don't train the new hires and just expect them to fully understand the job once on the job or think they learn everything in school. My old job was like that. I got no training and whenever I brought up a question they replied you should know this or you should have learned this in school. I don't recommend people lying about something that can be easily verified or skills they don't have, let alone fake portfolio. But what I think is perfectly fine is the following. 1. I had a really hard time finding work right after uni and was mentally not in a great place. So instead of having a gap I said I did freelance work in something I am able to do and technically could have done freelance work in. I definitely recommend people use the self-employed freelance to cover gaps. 2. If a family member friend has a company you can cover a gap by saying you did work for that company even if really you just did some unpaid help with a small thing. 3. Presenting internships as full-time jobs where doable. I had a great unpaid internship abroad, no one is going to get in touch with them. Back when I had no work experience I used the title I had during the internship which sounds like a real job. No one will know. And since I have built experience anyway, 2 years on a cool job sounds better than seeing that I spent 2 years doing an unpaid part-time internship. 4. Change your titles where it's a fair move, and chances of anyone calling you out are low none. I had jobs where I progressed in responsibilities under the same title. Ironically, the issue with getting the title promotion was usually lack of experience. When I left, I decided to use the title that better represented the work I did and sent the better message about my skills and aspirations. My next jobs are the ones where I was going for the same title, since now I had experience in it. And my references are not the HR or whatever but my line managers and people I worked with, who would confirm my duties and not correct the wrong title. I do not have a degree, but I have had a very successful IT career and I currently work for a top-tier cybersecurity software company, very well paid. That said, I have never lied on my resume, at least in my field. Once you establish expertise for a couple of years, hiring managers will glance over the lack of a degree. Your professional reputation has a lot more weight than you think, so keep friendly relationship with your colleges because you will need them as reference for the future. That said, having a degree from a well-known university has a lot of weight, especially if you plan on climbing the corporate ladder, but I have known many people have a leading large organization without a degree. Lying on a resume is never advised. Hiring managers have their ways to validate your employment and education history. I faked work experience at 2 jobs as a size admin because I had the technical experience but didn't have the work experience on my resume, so even though I knew what I was talking about, companies passed over me because I didn't have it on my resume. I've been working at my current company for 4 years and just switched to another team which got me a 13 grand raise, 7% bonus and stock options. Half agree. You don't need a degree for many things to be successful, but if you put skills on your resume that you don't actually possess and you can't even talk about, there is no way I'm hiring you. I graduated from my master's degree 2 years ago in France. 7/70 people from my promotion had worked for at least 5 years between their bachelor's degree and the master's degree. They had to go back to school so that HR can tick the box master's degree in order to hire them as a manager. My master's degree made me approximately 0% more capable to manage a team than my bachelor's degree. Good luck lying about a degree on a job application. Most HR teams seem to verify every tiny little thing about you during onboarding. My job was once under threat because I left a job and didn't sign up for job seekers benefits for a couple of months. I had money so didn't see the point. The company viewed this as, well, you must have been building nukes for North Korea then, I guess. You don't need a specific degree or certification to do 90% of most jobs, but that 10% is the difference between being wildly successful and blowing something up. I hate the way hiring is done, and it only seems to get worse. It seems that even the simplest jobs have certifications now, and every employer wants you have it completed on your dime before you apply. There is a huge difference between, say, lying about having extensive experience with Microsoft Excel and fraudulently claiming you have a law medical degree with subsequent licensure. OP isn't talking about medical or law degrees. He specifically said that. He is talking about corporate jobs where they are qualified, have been doing a great job since they were hired, but still get fired after it's discovered they had no degree. Lying about your degree status discredits the rest of your resume. You know what you lied about, but how does your potential employer? Experience and qualifications should be treated equally. The blanket statement that degrees mean very little is objectively false. It could be true for certain positions in certain industries, but you can't honestly make that claim across the board. I'd be right there with you if it weren't for all the incompetent degreed people I've worked with at every employer. Degrees aren't the great filter like we have been sold, and they certainly are no guarantee of a top-rate employee. Having a degree isn't about education or understanding concepts these days. What employers see when they see a degree is that a person invested in their future, is future-oriented, and can follow through with a long-term commitment. And in many cases, transferable skills. A degree means very little in terms of job acquisition. Education has intrinsic merit. It's not a give me a job slip. If only we could get universities and colleges to put this text into their advertising. It would be nice if job requirements weren't so strict anyway. I usually don't bother with a lot of them. Cover letter, frick you. If you're interested, we can talk. And sometimes they have some really ridiculous questions. Like, have you ever been fired, terminated from a job? Explain. One was, will you message person name and explain why you're interested in this position, and I'm like, number. It should be as simple as, here's what I can do and what I've done in the past. Now you figure out if you want to talk. Degrees don't mean very little. People with good degrees work very hard to get it. The fact is that lots of jobs don't require 100% of the knowledge you acquired through your degree, but a good degree holder is a proof that the person has worked hard and has focus or mental capacity to do something. For example, JP Morgan or Goldman, which are finance companies, hire a lot of people who have actually done a degree in science or engineering. On job, there is no science involved, but a person with engineering degree from MIT brings assurance that he has mental capacity way above others. This is silly. They could easily lie about other things. Also, there are plenty of jobs where lying like that could literally hurt you or others. It's more about who you know than what you know. A good connection or nepotism will get you much further than the best resume ever could, lies or otherwise. And with those connections and nepotism, others will just do the lying for you. They'll overestimate, oversell your abilities, and all you have to do is nod and say yes. and the job is yours. I have more than doubled my salary over the last 5 years by doing this. Here is my advice. Never stay at any place for more than 3 years. Take what you've learned, quantify what you've done and take it to a competitor that will pay you more. Take anything your boss does that you understand enough to have an intelligent conversation around it, and put those responsibilities under your own on your resume. The way I see it, degrees are proof that you are capable of undertaking professional employment. I want to make it absolutely clear though that not having a degree doesn't mean you can't succeed in a professional career. The degree is just proof that you are capable of doing it, and is therefore useful for young people who don't have years of professional industry experience to evidence their skills. Postgraduate degrees are also really useful to evidence career commitment and development. My brother who works in HR got promoted, and one of the reasons cited for that is because they liked that he had done a master's in HR and that it showed commitment to his professional development. I once knew a guy who applied for a job as an architect, interviewed and was hired. He went to work for 3 weeks before they figured it out and fired him. I'm here cause I need a law degree. I thought you got one from Columbia? Well, it turns out you need an American one too. Anyone should know that a degree does not necessarily mean the person knows their crap. It just increases the likelihood manyfold. In fact, they're proof that degrees mean very little. That people like this exist is not proof of that. Proof that degrees mean very little would be something like finding that people with degrees statistically do very little better than people without them. That is, in general rather than based on some anecdotes you heard. You shouldn't need a degree to understand the difference. There are definitely people who will find their way to an education outside the traditional institutions, and there are definitely jobs that overstate their requirements. That in itself is not proof that degrees mean very little. It only proves that some people and jobs can do without them. Or it means that the company was looking for overqualified candidates to do the job. It's not as clear cut as you assume. This is the right answer. That wouldn't prove that degrees mean very little. It proves that many HR departments request higher credentials than needed for the position. Whether they are bad depends on whether you think lying and misrepresenting yourself is bad. I would generally agree that many office and professional jobs can be taught to anyone of average intelligence. They are proof that in that instance the degree meant very little. I've worked with people who lied about their experience. Most of the time it shows. I've had people with degrees who were either only book smart but couldn't translate that or just squeaked by on graduating. A few of those had an aha moment and became pretty good. Most didn't. My aunt became the CFO of a company on sheer experience within and raw intelligence. High school dropout. A degree is just proof you went to school to learn a specific field. Doesn't say anything about work ethic or intelligence. I remember a story from either 2018 or 2019 where a woman was fired from a university's admissions office after close to 20 years on the job. It was this exact situation. She lied about having a college degree when she was hired. If I recall correctly, she wasn't caught because of poor performance. She was caught because regulations changed and she had to have a degree to keep her job. That's bulls. No, it is not about the degree. It is about the job that the person lied to get. Past behavior is by far the best predictor of future behavior. This is one of the most established truths of human personalities. This is why we always look at education, resumes, and every other type of record of a person's past when evaluating whether or not we want them for a job, or in our life for some other reason. It is certainly possible that someone could lie about qualifications and still perform well in a job, but these outliers do not prove the basic concept of looking at past behavior wrong. Generally speaking, people that can pull this off are able to do so because the job that they have is bulls, not because the education system is. Jobs that require real, quality training, both blue collar and white collar, are dang near impossible to fake your way through. Nonsense stuff that any talented person could do. Sales, for example, is different. It is not hard to lie about having a college degree and be an insurance salesman because you don't need one to sell insurance anyway. But try pretending to have welding certification and see what happens. I love how this just glosses right over the lie part of the problem. As if so long as they do good job the act of lying itself isn't an issue and says nothing about their character. The reason they are fired once discovered has nothing to do with how well they did their job or not having a degree. They are fired because of their dishonesty and the damage their presence does to the company in question retroactively, at present, but most critically, in the future. From a professional standpoint, someone who lies to your face for years or decades has no integrity and can't be trusted. They exploited others in order to acquire something they didn't put the work in to earn. If a company is allowed them to remain, they are endorsing that behavior. Reputation is everything in business and you will lose business if there is even a hint that your company is dishonest. From a legal standpoint, these individuals subject a company to vast swath of civil liability based on argument they used misrepresentation and fraud to entice people to do business with them. Specifically, their existence opens the door to lawsuits based on a company fraudulently representing their services, abilities, and personnel in a manner that can easily rise to and affirm an accusation of detrimental reliance in a civil suit. While their deception could allow a company to successfully argue against liability on the basis they had no knowledge of it, that defense evaporates the very second after said knowledge is acquired. That defense is far from a guaranteed, but it at least gives you a chance at success that is non-existent once the deception is discovered. It gets even worse if we are talking about a profession that requires a degree or certification in order to legally operate, as that would entail criminal liability, which can outright destroy any given business and, in many cases, prevent its owners from ever operating, owning, or having a substantial stake, especially engineering. Well said. You can pretend like an uneducated person can do an educated person's job if you want. I'm uneducated in my field and I can tell you the rate at which I get crap done was about 20% slower than my peers for the first few years because I basically had to look up everything that they learned in school as I needed to use it. So, we are ending up with the same education, I'm just costing everyone more time by getting it one paragraph at a time. The only experience I have with someone who lied about their education on a resume was about 15 years ago. He was hired for a junior consulting job and was getting a lot of coaching and support. He wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible either. Then he started showing up late or calling in. He started out with believable excuses, but when they ran out the whoppers started. I remember thinking it was too coincidental to have 2 family members die within 2 weeks. After that is when HR showed up and he was escorted out. Through the grapevine I heard they couldn't confirm his college degree. I think this guy had a lying problem. I would have put money on the dude keeping his job if he wasn't lying about being late or taking days off. Degrees are passports into interviews. You're telling the person the other side of the table that you're competent broadly and also in one particular area. Working in IT, one of the smarted managers had a degree in geology and the only person I saw get fired for incompetence had a PhD. I am 100% on board with anyone who says that job requirements in a lot of places way outpace the quality of the job. Entry-level positions paying $30K that require a master's and 4 years of experience, while may not be as prevalent as it seems on the internet, do exist and are an abomination. But the point of degree requirements is not what you seem to think it is. Yes, of course, having a degree in finance will help you get a job in finance. For example, having that baseline knowledge will make it easier to train you in whatever you are going to do. But degree requirements are really there to solve the massive information processing problem that an employer has to solve when hiring for a job when there are hundreds or thousands of applications. Imagine you are hiring for a job that requires even a modicum of prior specialized knowledge or skill. Maybe you get 100 applicants. To use a relatively low number, on first glance, it could look like basically every candidate is at least somewhat qualified for the job. Do you read every word of every CV resume, every mission statement, personal statement, etc.? Do you check every reference and previous employer, even with a handful of people to work on this with you? Checking every last detail of every candidate to see if they have that special something you are looking for would be enormously wasteful time-wise. So, what do you instead? You impose a simple, easy to verify requirement that almost any good candidate would satisfy, and you cut the rest. Hence, degree requirement. This can go further. You impose a degree requirement and you still have 40 candidates. So you ask for experience, 2 years and Easy to verify and clearly makes the average remaining candidate better. Now you have 25 candidates. Then you say that they must have some training or certification in some skill or software or something you use. Easy to verify and the average candidate gets even better. etc. Until you get a small enough list of people that you can really dig into the specifics and find the right one. Maybe now you have 10 that you can really focus on. Obviously, sometimes these requirements eliminate good candidates, but on average they leave you with a pool of more desirable candidates so that you can look into them in more detail. Source: have experience as a candidate and on search committees in the job market for PhD economists. My previous job, I was the last person who held my position without an engineering degree. The company has been around since the 60s and had never acquired a degree and did great. Suddenly we get new management and now a bunch of positions are dependent on a college education even though the job itself had zero changes. Pretty freaking stupid. I quit for other reasons, but it was just mind-boggling how inept management has become in all fields. Maybe the guy they didn't hire that actually had a degree might have done a better job. Quality of an employee is not binary. Depends on the job. A lot of it is just having proper certification, which in some cases isn't an issue of being practical, it's an issue of being legal. I'm in a job right now where having my bachelor's degree isn't required, but it definitely gave me an edge. If you have a degree, employers can surmise you are capable of meeting deadlines, following instructions, corresponding, working in teams, delegating, using basic office programs like Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. What I'm doing now isn't in my field, to be honest, but the skills I developed in college are definitely transferable. That isn't to say someone who doesn't have a degree wouldn't develop those skills, or that someone who has a degree is automatically skilled in those areas, but I can see how it would make the decision easier from an employer's perspective. Hasn't everyone lied just a teeny bit on their resume? Like, I'm not proficient in Python but I know enough to wing it, so why not say that I am? Depends on the job and scope of the lie. Tell me you graduated W honors for an entry-level sale job. Who cares? Your degree won't matter much. Tell me you are a board certified doctor and you aren't. Huge problem. Honestly, it can be frustrating. Degrees seem for the most part a way to limit certain people from certain job. Of course, having a degree is a great achievement, but there are plenty of people who don't have who are just as if not more skilled. But most jobs you're gonna learn most of what you need to know on the job. The degree is just a foundation. In my job we have a 50/50 mix of degree and no degree workers. The degrees are not a good predictor of skill level. Some were great but a lot of others were often arrogant and overconfident and lazy. They saw the job as below them, didn't work hard, and the overconfidence led to making many mistakes. It's fine to leverage a lie or reposition the facts in your favor. Work life is full of euphemisms, workarounds, and general bulls. Employers lie and conceal the truth as well to make a good impression. You can't fake the funk though, you have to be able to perform the job. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.